The new Boston College depth chart is out, and the names that you are going to see are going to be game changers that are going to lead to wins for Boston College in 2025.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you want analysis, scoops, and details on your Boston College Eagles, you are at the right place. On today's show, we're going to get into the depth chart. What questions remain? What big surprises came from the depth chart? And what did we learn about the depth chart? We're going to have an action-packed episode that's going to get you ready for Saturday's games. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, let's kick this off. The depth chart. What you're looking for in terms of figuring out how Boston College is going to look this year. It's out. And I have to say, not to float my own boat here for my everydayers who have been listening to me, but none of this was a huge surprise. There are going to be some surprises on here, but the names that you are expecting to start are projected to start. Now, before we get into all this, reminder, the two deep is the starters and the reserves. But as Bill O'Brien said in his press conference on Tuesday, just because there's names not on there or they're lower on the depth chart, that does not mean that they're not going to play. That does not mean they're not going to play. They could. He mentioned specifically VJ Wilkins, who honestly I was impressed that he even brought him up because I wasn't sure he was even going to play. He brought him up and said, he's lower, but he'll play in certain packages. There'll be dime packages and nickel packages. Some of these guys will get out there for those types of things. So, Dylan Lonergan, obviously, we knew he was going to be the starter. He's been starter since day one. Not day one, day 14-ish of practice, and he's been there ever since. So, Lonergan's going to be a starter. The starters at running back, you have Jordan McDonald or Turbo Richard. It'll be interesting to see also that, Turbo's on there, but he's missed the last 2 weeks of practice because of a hand injury. With this availability report that we're going to get, which is like what you get in the NFL, where it's guys who are out, probable, questionable, those types of things. What will Turbo's designation be when that comes out? I think that comes out on Thursday, so that'll be the next thing that we need to watch for. He's on there. The first freshman that we saw is listed at running back, and that's Bo McCormick. And that's no surprise for our everydayers here. You have heard me talk about how good he's looked. And on offense, there's only a couple other freshmen on there, and I think it was the offensive line that you'll see the next one. Now, the offensive line, again, O'Brien has basically laid this out before. He said Dwayne Alec or Michael Crounce would be the starting center. Well, he now said it's Dwayne Alec. And so the starting five that we projected out in the spring is literally the starting five on that offensive line, which is great news because there were times during the camp we saw certain guys go down and you were crossing your fingers that they, weren't hurt. Now they're all there. You have Logan Taylor. You have Jude Bowery. You have Kevin Klein and Dwayne Alec and I'm blanking on Eric Stoggerty, who's your new guard. So there's your five right there. Now, when you look at your wide receivers, this is where I think, there's we're going to get surprises in the second group, but the offense itself really didn't have a ton of surprises. Wide receiver, Lewis Bond, Reed Harris, Jaden Skeet. Those are your ride or die wide receivers. These are the guys that are going to win you football games. You need these three. And if you want to have a Bill O'Brien passing offense, having a three like that is what's going to really solidify your talent and your depth. Behind them, you had VJ Wilkins, you had Dawson Pugh, and Luke McLaughlin, who is a captain. So, those aren't going to be, two of those three, Pugh and McLaughlin, are a little bit more unproven. VJ Wilkins, I haven't seen a whole bunch of him during the camp, but apparently he's ready to go. There's your wide receivers. I'll get into some surprises there because there was a few that I was surprised that weren't on this. And then, you're looking at like your tight ends. You have Jeremiah Franklin, Ty Lockwood, boom, boom. But then they put in Zeke Moore, and I think the reason they put Zeke Moore on there is because of what Bill O'Brien has said. Yeah, he's probably not part of the two deep at that specific tight end spot, but he's going to be everywhere. He's going to be a fullback. He's going to be an inline tight end. They're going to, run him at times. They're going to do a whole bunch of different things with Zeke Moore. So you got to get him on there because that's what he deserves. He's probably not going to start, but he'll play out there. He'll definitely be in some packages. I think specifically like goal line is what I would wonder if he's going to play some big roles. Like he's a big dude, and you see him all over the place during different practices. So I think his versatility is what's going to be really important. Now, you look at the offense. You don't have Shaker Rising on there. And the other piece that I wanted to say, and this is not a dig at Jeff Hafley. I promise you I'm not digging at Jeff Hafley here. Jeff Hafley's depth chart was literally, it was almost like every player that was scholarshiped somehow made it on. Like it was like this or this, this or this, and then it would be like 5 deep. Bill O'Brien's is a nice tight 2 to 3 at each position. He does not, just jam this with players like Hafley did. Hafley's depth chart was as unreadable and worthless as it gets because it was just literally like he didn't choose on any particular positional battle unless there was like a really big one that he had an answer to. It was all smoke and mirrors. So when you got his depth chart, it was like, oh, that's nice. This is not helpful at all. This isn't, and his practices were closed. So it's like you didn't get any info from it. Again, this goes back to what Bill O'Brien has been, which is pretty darn transparent to the media since he's been here. And this is another example of it. Like he's open practice. I've been able to go to almost all the practices up to the season. He has also made the depth chart more realistic. You could jam in there, 6 other wide receivers, and you would never know if they're going to play or not until you got to the games and you go, why isn't he? Oh, well, he's never going to play. That's not what Bill O'Brien's doing. All the guys I look on this and they said, you're an injury away from this guy playing, or this, wide receiver, maybe there's a package this guy's going to play at. It makes a lot of sense. So in our second segment, the defensive side of the ball, there are some big time surprises here. And for folks that have listened, you may not think of it as a surprise, but I'll explain why. Some of them kind of shocked me, and I'll let you know why in just a moment. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. When you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life into one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is here for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I don't save as much as I need to. And I've been looking for ways to figure out how to get more money into my bank account. Monarch Money helped me find some subscription sites that I've been using that I don't even use anymore. It helped me cancel them, got rid of all of those. It also helped me look at the amount of money that I spend going out to dinner. Cut that down a little bit. Boom, there's that money I want to save. It's great. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the crack. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love FanDuel. I was just on it today. Looking at college football spreads for this weekend, it was so easy. You look at the time of the game, the spread, you can find the over-unders, money lines. it's all there. And then if you're looking at Major League Baseball, I love the home run prop bets. That's always a fun one if you're into baseball. With the Red Sox playing well, I love to throw a few home run prop bets out there. It's so quick, it's easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to watching sports. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app today by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black here, and thank you all who have made Locked On Boston College your first listen every day. And I want to tell you all about our listener survey. I mentioned it on a previous episode, but we have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer your questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. And that, again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. And it's also in that QR code right there if you're on YouTube. Again, Locked On BC, looking at that depth chart. The defensive side of the ball, I think for folks that, haven't been able to get to practice or, seen any practice, would be a little bit surprised about. You have guys that you expect. On the defensive tackle side, you had Ced McConnell, which I told you was going to happen, and Quan Williams. Those are going to be your starters, with Owen Stodmeyer looking like he's going to be out for a little bit. You have Q Hutchins. Obviously, he was a starter last year. He's going to be a starter again this year. The other edge rusher spot. I've talked a lot about Favre Bate, and I thought there was a good chance he would be listed as the starter. But if you've been listening to my show recently, my everyday has been listening, I've been saying that Edwin Kalengi is a name that I saw coming up more and more with Bill O'Brien. I said, watch out for him. This is a guy that could be starting. And boom, what happened? So again, I don't think this means Edwin Kalengi is going to start everything. I think Bate is going to play too, but it's going to be Kalengi that gets that start. Now, the big surprise for me on the edge rush was that Josiah Griffin wasn't on there at all. I thought he had a pretty good camp. I was surprised that they didn't put him in there. They have Jason Flint as the other backup edge. And I thought Griffin, he's 2 years in a row. You hear a little bit about him playing at camp, and, I've seen him play. I thought he's been making enough plays, but maybe not. Maybe that's what the big issue is. Now, the backup defensive tackle spot I thought was also interesting because the transfers that you brought in, Onye Nwisi and Chuck Nato, are not on this list. I wasn't surprised by that. I figured they wouldn't be. Chris Marable Jr., though, is. That's the transfer from Wake Forest. And that one doesn't surprise me. He did miss a little bit of practice, but he's been good. Like, this is a guy that can play. So we'll talk a little bit more about the defensive tackle position in our final segment, but that is one group. You look at the linebackers, you have Bam Crouch and Owen McGowan or Jason Hewlett. Now, that's an interesting one, and I'm not sure how Bill O'Brien's going to use Hewlett versus McGowan. Hewlett is much faster. Just call it what it is. He's a faster player. McGowan knows the system. He's smart. He's instinctive. He knows what's going on. He's also coming back from an injury, but I feel like that might not be the biggest factor. I thought Hewlett would be the starter. I honestly did. I thought that would be the way they went with this, but they didn't. And that was a bit of a surprise for me, that it's actually both. We'll wait to see when the game actually happens. And I'm not even going to say this game. I'm going to say Michigan State to see how they split up those linebacker snaps. And behind them is Bryce Steele. Not a surprise there either. Now, the secondary. If you're talking surprise, this was a spot that I was really shocked with. For a few different reasons. I'll explain all of them. Your starting offense cornerbacks are Amari Jackson and Zaire Torrance. Torrance did not surprise me at all. I had said all along, MVP of the defense during camp. Like, phenomenal player. Like, he's got to get out there. You got to play him. The surprise to me, honestly, is that Max Tucker is a backup. Max Tucker, I think, started every game last year. And I thought he played pretty well. He had some moments where it wasn't that great, but clearly Zaire beat him out. And that's what and that goes back to what Bill O'Brien has said all along. We saw it with Castellanos. We saw it with Grayson James. You have to earn it. You can't rest on your laurels to get a starting job on this team now. You have to continue to earn it. And I'm not saying Max Tucker didn't earn it. He'll play. I'm sure he's going to play. It's not like that big of a deal. But the fact he's not listed as a starter was a surprise. Your starting nickelback is Cam Martinez with TJ Green, a true freshman, behind him. Now, given all that, there's a very noticeable missing name. Ashton McShane is not on the 2 deep. He's not listed. He's a guy that I thought he looked good at camp. And he's not listed. You have Max Tucker and wait. Oh, did I not put Amari Jackson on there? Sorry, I'm looking at my article while I'm talking about this. But Ashton McShane's just not on there. So that was a bit of a surprise. Then you go to the secondary. And again, you might be a little bit shocked by this. You're starting safeties, which is going to be KP Price at strong safety, which you expect. And then Omar Thornton. Carter Davis is listed as the backup behind KP Price. Those were the 2 starters last year for most of the year. But again, if you've been listening to this podcast, I've been telling you how good Omar Thornton has looked. He is really good. And this is not a knock on Carter Davis because I thought he's looked good too. But I could see why, there's probably certain things that they're looking at that I could see why Thornton would do that. Like he's a good hitter. He's, all over the place. That's what he's good at, right? So that's your safety position, right? Then you go to your special teams. And I have to say, I'm not surprised by this, but they do not list anyone. It's all just oars for everything. Who's the punter? Well, it's Andy Quinn or Seamus Florio. No kidding. Who's the place kicker? Oh, it's Luca Lombardo or Liam Connor. No kidding. So those were the 2 big battles. The corners I think were in secondary was the other big one I was watching for. And there's no answer yet. So as much as I give credit, like everything else that I talked about was all kind of written in the stars. Like we knew those things were going to happen, and maybe with a slight variation. The big positional battles, O'Brien didn't really make a decision yet. Or if he has, he's not announcing it. So that's where things are at. And I look at this group and I thought Seamus Florio would win punting. That was my personal opinion. I thought, but I could go for Andy Quinn too. I thought they both looked good. And the kicking, I don't know. I've said I saw them struggle for longer ranges. They're both pretty decent inside like the 35, but either of those guys could win. And then for kick returns, it's going to be Bo McCormick. You're going to get your freshman there and Turbo Richard. And punt returns, Isaiah Ferris and Cam Martinez. So in a moment, what are my questions that still remain after seeing this depth chart? I have some final thoughts I want to get into with you, and I'll explain what those all look like in just a moment. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with SupplyHouse. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items for the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blindside covers. You need parts for a fast part for a project? SupplyHouse has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on a job where every detail matters. So join the free TradeMaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lowest prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your order. At supplyhouse.com, SHCollege5 for 5% off. Real people, real service. Locked on Boston College, AJ Black here. And if you're looking for a second show, let me tell you about Locked on ACC. I'm on the squad this year, this week especially. week preview. We're talking about everything. BC and Fordham is not the most eye-opening preview, so I don't talk a ton about that, but I get some good digs in on Syracuse. I get some good digs in on Florida State. If you want to hear my thoughts on a lot of that stuff, I'm on that. So check that out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Now that we have this depth chart, you get answers, but it still raises questions. As I mentioned to end the last episode, the last segment, there's still positions that are not answered. We don't know the kicker. We don't know the punter. There's also other questions that I have. Guys who have been missing practice. Will they be playing? Bill's talked about it. I wasn't at practice yesterday, but is Turbo Richards going to play? Is VJ Wilkins? He makes it sound like VJ's going to play, but is he going to play? And honestly, do we care if they play? At least this week, I don't. If Turbo is banged up, or he's still hurt with his hand, he needs to be healthy for Michigan State. The same thing with VJ Wilkins. Let them, if they need to rest, let them rest. The other big question from this group is who is not on this list that still could play? There's one big name that I keep bringing up that I was honestly kind of surprised wasn't on the list, and that's Kalen Chudzinski. They only went 3 deep, so if this was a Jeff Hafley depth chart, I'm sure he'd be on there, but I expect him to play. I do. I think you're going to see him play at some point. I know he's not on there, but he's a name I'd watch for. You look on the defensive line. You have guys out there right now that are not listed, like Chuck Nato. Will he play? Are they really? Is it a potential? Is it a potential that we don't see Chuck Nato and Anya Nuisi and they're redshirted? So people keep bringing that up to me, and it's a curious thing to think about. That you brought in these 2 guys from lower level FCS programs. They're not on your depth chart. Are you going to try to stash them for a year, use that red shirt? And I'm pretty sure both of them still have it. I'm not 100% sure, though. And just wait for next year? Or are they here to basically fill, lower spots on your roster? That's a question I have. I don't know. And then my final question is, how good is this roster going to be? How do I feel? Like there's a good mix of veteran and young talent on there. You go from guys that have been around forever, like Logan Taylor, Amari Jackson, to younger guys that, you don't know what they could bring, like Andy Quinn. And you look at the depth chart and go deeper. You have names on there that we've never seen play yet. Pape Sai. Again, Pop Sai. I mentioned him a lot. I think he's the future at one of your tackle positions. He looks so much better than he did last year. And with one more year under his belt, he'll be ready to start next year. I truly believe that. And you look on your defensive line, you have guys like Chris Marable, who could be a big name for you this year. So I love the depth chart day. I got to say, I'm more excited for the availability report. I'm a bit of an injuries nerd. I want to see what happens. The last thing I want to bring up before I go, though, is Bill O'Brien discussed what a super fan is. And by his definition, I don't think anyone's a super fan for BC. Minus like a couple hundred weirdos that stay really early. And not weirdos, but like diehards. That's a better word for what I mean. Because he said it's those people that get to the game 30 minutes early and stay until the end of the game. Those are super fans. The staying through the whole game, I get that. There's a lot of fans that do that. But getting there 30 minutes early, I like that idea. But I know a lot of you guys tailgate, and BC makes it really hard to get in early because you only have X amount of minutes to do that. And you're paying thousands of dollars for those spots. I get it, but until there's a reason to go in, maybe what you do, and this is where you go back to that survey, right? If you're a tailgater, they have a beer garden there that you can go and continue your tailgate, but be in the stadium next year. That could help alleviate this. So maybe those changes are coming. We'll have to wait to see what happens there. On tomorrow's show, we're going to recap even more from BC. We'll get ready for that Fordham game. On Friday's show is our prediction show with Mitch Wolf. You're going to want to make sure you hear that. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. Check me out on Threads, Facebook, Instagram. Blue Sky. I'm on TikTok. Get in on all that. And if you have not done so already, Eagle Insider right now is 50% off a subscription for the entire year. You're getting 6 free months of VIP access of Insider Boston College news you're not going to find anywhere else. Make sure you sign up today. Just head over to Eagle Insider and become a VIP. Thank you all, and we'll see you again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.